their mission. And Lexi is an associate digital specialist here at Community Boost. And Lexi serves nonprofit clients across multiple digital platforms, including the Google Ad Grant, Google Paid Search, Microsoft Ads, which you guys have probably heard about their recent ad grant. And she is doing all that for the social impact. And with a background in journalism and economics, Lexi aims to drive results through both quality content creation and data analysis. So please, chat, everybody give Lexi and Katie a big, warm welcome for this session.
Hello. Thanks, Giorgio. Hi, Lexi. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Katie. Super excited to be here.
Yeah. Last session. Yeah. The chat's going to blow up. No one's going to. It's okay. We don't have to. That's fine. You can be tired. I'll bring the energy. Welcome to Unlocking the Potential of Google Ads, a deep dive into Google paid ads and the Google Ad Grant. We are with Community Boost. I know you've seen this slide 100 times today. You get to see it 101 more times. We empower nonprofits through high impact digital marketing so they can change the world. We've worked with all kinds of nonprofits, ranging from the Cancer Research Institute to Souls for Souls, which you heard about just a couple seconds ago in that video. We're going to start off with a quick poll. Are you using both the Google Ad Grant and paid Google Ads together? Yes, but you want tips. You're using the grant, but not paid search. No, you're neither, but you're curious. OMG, what's the difference? We want to hear it. Let's see that poll come up. Give those a chance to sip. No, but we're curious. Okay. Curious is good. Hopefully we'll get to answer some questions. I know there were some questions from the last session that I think will get answered here as well. So we can dive right in. Somewhere there's my presentation. This is a photo of me. Giorgio already read our intro, so just a reminder, I'm Katie. I'm a senior digital specialist here. I work largely in search. Love it.
And my name is Lexi, like Giorgio mentioned, also a digital specialist working primarily with the Google Ad Grant and Microsoft as well, as does Katie. All right, let's do this.
Let's do it. A quick run through of what we will be doing today. We're going to do a quick Google Ads review, make sure we're all on the same page with some terminology. We're going to look at high-level differences in the two platforms, and then we're going to actually break down strategy for both the grant and paid. We'll look at top metrics, budget, bidding strategies, keyword match types, and how they can both drive results for your organization.
Okay, so we're aware that we have a number of different levels here today. Hopefully all of you were here earlier to be with Emily and talk about how Google search can really help bring your marketing strategy to the next level. But here we're going to go a little bit in depth. But for those of you who might not be too experienced with Google search, or you're just starting out with your account, just to give a brief overview of structure. So when thinking about our account structure, and as we'll talk about, this can differ between paid and ad grant, but typically we organize our campaigns based on our different goals for our organizations. So in the nonprofit world, we might have a campaign that's for volunteering. We might have one specifically for donations and one for awareness, specifically for the ad grant. And we split these up by ad groups, and each ad group is defined by a really tight set of keywords that align to an ad that's going to lead to a specific website landing page on your site. So an example might be if you have a campaign that's for volunteering, you might have ad groups that really target your different volunteering programs. Let's say you're a community center and you have volunteering programs that involve working with elderly and kids or outdoors or what have you. You might have an ad group for each one of those landing pages or programs just to target people at the specific query that they're submitting in Google. So something we want all of you to think about if you're just getting started think about the search queries that your organization provides an answer to. That is really key. What are users typing in where your organization is going to provide the perfect solution? If you're getting started, some of our keyword research tools that we really love to use are Keyword Planner, which is Google's keyword research tool, HRS, which is my personal favorite, and Keywords Everywhere, just to name a few.
All right, we're going to pop into the high level overviews. The ad grant, I know we just talked about it this last session, but the Google Ad Grant allows you to have $10,000 worth of free exposure. It is directly in your account. It's not a monetary grant that's like mailed to you as a check. One of the main drawbacks is going to be that Google Ad Grants will show below paid search ads. There's a separate auction, but that's still a really great platform for awareness. Your main goals will probably be driving like new users, new traffic to your site. You'll look at spend. We know that every nonprofit really wants to maximize their grants, so figuring out what your max really looks like for your nonprofit specifically. You want to bring in clicks. That's actually people coming to your site, looking at your pages. Click-through rate is going to be really important to pay attention to. Your CTR, it's a compliance requirement that you're above 5% each month. So that's something that's really important to look at. And then conversions. You need to have conversions set up in your account. It's a requirement for the program, but it also helps you drive better results. So you want to pay attention to those metrics. On the paid search side, the big difference is it costs you money. It's a completely separate account from your grant account, and you have to put in money into it. But your ads are also like more likely to show and up for competitive keywords. So it's a great way if you're building awareness through your grant account to then have remarketing audiences or even some more lower funnel, which we'll talk about in the next slide, lower funnel keywords, competitive keywords in that account. You'll still be bringing in new users, but you'll also now have probably more access to warm leads. Your main focus will be driving as many conversions as you can at as low a cost as you can. So we're going to pay attention to our conversion rate, our cost per conversion, our cost per click. And then your top concern is staying within your budget. You are all working with nonprofit budgets. I know that a lot of times things are really tight. So making sure that you're able to really maximize your budget to bring in the conversions that you want and need.
Thanks, Katie. Okay, so like other marketing strategies, we like to think of Google search on a marketing funnel. For those of you who worked with the Google Ad Grant, you're probably aware, like Katie mentioned, 10K. So you can really target all levels of the funnel if you want. Where you're going to see the most users is probably at that higher funnel awareness tier. You're going to be gaining the most traction from keywords that are on the more general end, that are probably from users who are just really starting to get exposed to your organization. So if I think of an example, something I mentioned here, I work with an org that's like a mental health clinic in San Francisco. And in the Google Ad Grant, we use a lot of keywords around things like anxiety in toddlers, depression in teenagers, what to do if my child is experiencing anxiety. Things like that can really help reach the user while they're in their research phase. That might not be something you want to focus on in paid search. The thing about the Google Ad Grant is you might struggle to gain traction with higher competition keywords. We consider them more difficult. These are going to be keywords that might be a little bit more directly adhering to specific services. So that's really when paid comes in and is going to help you target those lower funnel goals, whether that be a form completion, an event sign up, even donations. Paid can really be helpful in helping drive traffic, or the Google Ad Grant sometimes can fall short. So paid search, you're really going to want to focus on these high value keywords to get to the core of what your services are for people who are in that ready to buy stage. And then lower down the funnel, we often use branded keywords in search to make sure your organization is really showing up at the very top of search results. Something that might happen sometimes, specifically if you're in a really competitive field, is even though your SEO is great and you're showing up at the top of organic search results, You might notice searching for your org that other organizations are showing up in paid search results when you search your brand name. It's unfortunate, but happens a lot. And the best way to combat that is by also upping them on their game and using paid search as well, just to make sure that you're the most relevant as you are for your branded terms. Yeah.
It'll go eventually. There you go.
Okay. Okay, so starting out, something that we want to challenge everyone here to think about today as we go through this presentation, and feel free to ask us as many questions about this as you want, is goal setting. So, of course, we all want donations. Donations are going to be that great bottom of funnel dream that we're all hoping for. But for the Google Ad Grant, that might not be the most realistic goal. You want to start thinking about other conversions on your website that can really help measure the start of that user journey. So if you're really trying to raise awareness about your brand, you might want to measure things like time on site. Are users spending 4 minutes on your site, 5 minutes on your site? You can track how many pages they're visiting per session. You can track, for example, let's say you have a key informational landing page you're really hoping to drive traffic to. You can see how far users are scrolling down and measure that with a conversion goal. There's all sorts of things you can measure that help indicate the user experience on your site and how much they're willing to interact with your organization. This can be particularly useful in determining what keywords you use in the long run. And then another component we really are going to drive home is putting a monetary valuation to your keywords. This is most important for paid, but is really important across search, is really thinking about what specific goals are worth for you. This can help you determine where you put your budget in accounts, what keywords you prioritize, but it can even help with bidding strategies to actually communicate to Google machine learning mechanisms what conversions are most important to you and what you're willing to spend on keywords that are driving those conversions. That's where the power of Google comes in and can be really helpful to us as marketers.
Yeah, I want to drive home that point that you said of assigning monetary value to your conversion goals. In paid search especially, you might not, be advertising for donations. We have a lot of clients who are trying to bring in appointment schedules or volunteer signups or something that doesn't necessarily have monetary value. If you can assign what that is worth to you, how much you're willing to spend for something that's not actually donation money coming into you, that makes it a lot easier to inform your optimizations. And then it makes it a lot easier to go back to whoever's setting your budgets, be it your board or your CEO or your treasurer or whomever, to say, okay, I brought in 500 appointment schedules at less than $25 per schedule, and we've valued an appointment at $50. Like, those kinds of things are great when you're making decisions on budgets and different things like that.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie.
My computer is losing its mind. Grant strategy. The grant is ideal if you are an organization, period. But it is great if you're looking to build brand awareness, if you're an organization that wants to show something at the beginning of their customer journey, if you are trying to be a thought leader in your field. It's really great to inspire learning and help people connect with your organization. Thinking to those goals examples that Lexi gave us, it's really great for bringing people into your blog and helping them learn and bringing them in at the beginning and then teaching them something where they'll remember you and come back to you. When we're looking at metrics of what's important to look at when you're optimizing your account, the first thing you want to make sure you're paying attention to is your compliance requirements. These are the kinds of things that can get you knocked out or temporarily suspended. So you want to make sure you're following, all of Google's rules. The big metric ones to pay attention to is your 5% click-through rate. You want to make sure that that's 5% or higher each month. And then the other big metric one is making sure you have at least one conversion per month to ensure accurate conversion tracking. I know GA4 is like this big scary thing that everyone's worried about. I'm going to hope that like the magic people in the background can drop a link to our GA4 offerings in the chat. I didn't tell them about this beforehand. I keep doing this to them, but GA4 I know is scary for everyone, and conversions are super important in your account. So we have some services that can help you with that. The other thing that I look at in accounts is the cost. Not every grant account is going to spend $10,000 a month. That's just a reality of the nonprofit grant. Sometimes you're a nonprofit and you're really, really geo-targeted, really low. It's going to be a lot harder to spend $10,000. But figuring out what is your healthy. For this account, their healthy spend is about 4.5 grand a month. In other accounts I've seen it, it's about $2,000 a month. If you're really, really small org, it might be in the like hundreds, and that's okay. You're not going to get your grant taken away because you're not maximizing $10,000. It's amazing if you can maximize $10,000, but for some nonprofits, that's just not a reality. Sometimes you'll notice your cost go down if you're noticing like your average cost per click or your cost per conversion go down. That's a great sign that you're hitting the right people and you're able to bring them in at a lower cost. That tells you it's time to do some expansion. It's time to find more things to add to your account to help fill up the extra spend you have. When we're talking about budgets are a huge like difference between how we set budgets in paid and how we set in grants. In grant, we like to start out with a shared budget using enhanced cost per click bidding. I'll get into bidding in the next slide, but we'll create all of our campaigns and we'll stick them in the shared budget of $329 a day. That is the most you can spend per day in a grant account. It's not possible to go higher than that. So we'll see how campaigns are performing for a week or two, sometimes 3, and get an idea of what campaigns are performing well to educate us on where to set budgets for those campaigns in the future. Once we have that information, we'll duplicate those campaigns and set them to a smart bidding strategy. Again, I'm going to talk about it in the next slide. Don't worry too much. But we'll utilize smart bidding because that helps us get above the $2 cost per conversion or cost per click requirement in the ad grant. And then what we can do is we have all of these smart bidding strategies that are different campaigns are using, and we can set budgets ranging. I like between like 100 and 250. In this example, we go higher than that, but your budget is indicating to Google what is a priority to you, not necessarily that you're going to spend $200 per day in 4 campaigns. It's literally not possible, but you're indicating to Google things to do. This campaign is a $350 budget. It is higher priority for me than these other 4 campaigns that are set to a $200 budget a day. It's more of a indication to Google of priority rather than like an expectation that it's going to spend that amount. I promise bidding strategies, here they are. The Google, when you're going in and adding a search, it is quite literally an instantaneous auction. So every advertiser in the back end has put in how much they're willing to pay for that search that you've put in and have their ad show. That's why it's called a bid strategy. It's quite literally the strategy that you're using to put your bid in at an auction. Enhanced cost per click automatically adjusts your manual bids for clicks that are more or less likely to lead to a conversion. That's what the enhanced means. So again, it's really important to have conversions set up in your account. And it'll help you kind of have a little bit more like oomph behind your cost per click bidding than just manual cost per click. We don't see this max campaigns. Enhanced cost per click is great for learning, and it can be great for some campaigns, but it's not necessarily going to max your account. What we'll do is learn from our campaigns set in enhanced cost per click and then switch to or duplicate and then change those duplicates to maximize conversions. And what that does, it automatically adjusts your bids to bring in the most conversions possible with the budget you have set. So if my budget's set to $200 a day, it'll bring in as many conversions as possible with that $200 limit. This is great for the grant. I would probably end here in most grant accounts. If you're noticing that you're bringing in, $10,000 in spend, you're bringing in conversions, but your conversion costs are really high, you can use what's called a target cost per acquisition and set, a target goal of what you want to bring a conversion in, and that'll help drive your cost per conversion down. Then a step further, this is kind of a newer bidding strategy that I've personally started using. It's been around for a long time, but it's called maximize conversion value. Essentially, it's the same thing as maximize conversions, except it's focusing on bringing in value. It sounds really flashy. It sounds like, oh, that's perfect. I want donations. It doesn't necessarily work perfect every time. What I typically do is if I see a branded or a donation campaign that's bringing in value with maximized conversions, I will duplicate those campaigns and set them to maximize conversion value and just like try to bring in conversions. And I've noticed that I don't have any data that supports one performing better than the other, but I noticed that they both work. So I kind of just keep both running. You can also set a target ROAS, return on ad spend, but in the grant account is not necessarily going to be necessary to do. Here we go. Keywords. We talked about keywords at the beginning. They are what inform your ads showing. So there's various match types, and that essentially is the way that the keywords will show based off of the requirements you set. So broad match helps your ads reach a wider audience without having to account for synonyms or developing an extensive keyword list. So I can put in blood donation and in as a keyword, but if someone searches plasma donation, my ads will still fire because it's a similar enough topic that Google has decided like we should fire for blood donation. If you're vehemently opposed to something that you're seeing triggering a broad match keyword, you can narrow it down further to phrase match. This shows ads if the exact words are in there, and then things can be before or after the keyword. So blood donation is a necessary part of the search query, but if somebody searches blood donation near me, my ad will show. If that's still too much, you want it even more narrow, you just want to show for blood donation, you can set exact match. So blood donation search will trigger blood donation keyword and your ads will show. In the grant, we don't really use exact match the same way we use in paid. I will use phrase match if I am seeing a really low cost per click with a broad match keyword. I might change them to phrase match if they have really high impressions but people aren't clicking through. That's the biggest thing that I will do in terms of changing match types, but normally never as narrow as exact in the grant. One really important compliance note: you can't have single word keywords. They're not allowed by the grant. They're also ineffective. Like blood, not a good not a good keyword. Donation, maybe it's a fine keyword, but still not necessarily getting the right information across to users who are searching. So while we're not allowed to do it, it also is a valid there's valid reasons behind it. I mentioned, people inserting queries. They show up in what's called a search term list. When you're in your account, you'll see your ad group section, and then you'll see your keywords, and then there'll be a thing that says search terms. And essentially it'll show you your search terms. This is what people put into the Google box, the campaign that it was fired from, the ad group it was fired from, and the keywords it was fired from. So we can look at this list and see the keywords I put in were why give blood, giving blood restrictions, requirements to give blood. And the things that triggered for them all still very well relate to these keywords. So I don't feel the need to exclude anything or add them as negative keywords. They match up really well. One thing that I will note in the grant, you might be okay in the grant with things being a little tangential, and having, say, one thing that happens a lot in this account is people searching for selling their plasma. And in the grant account, you can kind of go either way of whether or not you would want to keep this in a grant account. Selling plasma is not exactly what they offer, but if we're seeing people are still donating through that search term, I'm more willing to keep it. In a paid search account, I'm less likely to keep it because I'm like, I don't want to spend any extra money on anything that doesn't relate directly to my search terms or my keywords that I'm selecting. I get a breather, you get a breather, everybody gets a breather. Schedule your paid and grant ads game plan with Community Boost. It is freezies. You can click on the link, you can scan the QR code, there's a link in the chat. It is free. You get to talk with somebody on our team to strategize how to optimize your Google ads so your nonprofit can scale growth in 2023. You get 3 seconds. And we move on.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Katie, for all that information. For our viewers, I've been trying to answer some questions in the chat. Hopefully that's helpful, but we can address them after as well. So to get into paid is going to be ideal for your organization for a couple different reasons. Many of you have probably started out with the ad grant. Hopefully you're aware of the ad grant. If not, hopefully Katie's presentation has been a good learning opportunity. But if you've tried out the ad grant, you're noticing that a lot of the keywords that you really want to gain traction on aren't getting any traffic. Paid search is a great opportunity. Paid search for a lot of the higher competition keywords that aren't going to gain traction in the ad grant, paid search can be a great opportunity to heighten that traffic and build conversions for those lower funnel keywords. Another reason you might want to use it is to really bump your name up to the top of search results like we talked about earlier. We can talk about the term search impression share in the next slide, but that's something that paid search can really, really help with. And to go off of my last point, if you have a very specific conversion goal or maybe two on site that you're really hoping to drive home, paid can really help you focus in on the most relevant keywords for you, regardless of how competitive they are. Obviously, that's not a guarantee of results. It's just saying that paid search can tend to be a little bit more successful than the Google Ad Grant when it comes to those lower funnel goals. Okay. All right, metrics. Okay, so with paid search, the focus is really going to be quality over quantity. A big focus on the ad grant is getting as much volume as possible, driving users to site, building that remarketing audience. But something that really matters to us in paid is making sure the users that come to our site are the highest quality users, the ones who are ready to buy what we're selling, and the way we can really start to determine that is looking at our cost for conversion. What we really care about in paid search, definitely as specialists working the day-to-day in these accounts, is getting that cost per conversion to be as low as feasibly possible, and that conversion rate to be as high as possible. Cost per conversion is a great metric to look at as well, because it can go off of what we talked about earlier. If you have a value defined in mind for a specific goal, looking at cost per conversion can really help you set realistic expectations. Let's say that cost is coming in really higher than you bargained for. How much can you drive towards that original cost that you were hoping for? Is there a point in between that you can start shooting for? Of course, it's better to aim low, but cost per conversion can really help you get a good idea of where your conversions ought to be. And some of the optimizations that you can do, for example, might be pausing keywords that have higher cost per conversion if you notice over time that they're not delivering conversions to you at a cost that you're comfortable with. For branding, if you're really hoping to get your ads to the top of search results, looking at search impression share is going to be ideal for your organization. This can be kind of a confusing figure. In technical terms, it means the percentage of impressions your ads receive compared to the total number of impressions your ads are eligible for. I won't get into the weeds of exactly what that is trying to communicate. I think the simplest way to explain it is the higher this number is, the better your ads are competing in the Google Ads auction. So the higher this number is, usually the better your ad rank is. If it's on the low end, then you kind of know where you need to improve. Usually that means improving your ads, improving the relevance of your keywords. There's a couple different things you can do, but that's just a start. Okay, budgeting. Okay, so in paid search, budgeting is one of the main optimizations that we use to kind of control and prioritize our different conversions, our different keywords. Let's say your main conversion that you're rooting for is donations, which is pretty frequent for a lot of the orgs that we work with. You might just have 2 campaigns, one that's specifically going to be for donation types of keywords, for example, donate to relieve poverty or donate to relieve hunger. And then you might have a branded campaign that's focused just on branded terms. Which one is going to be more successful totally depends on a number of qualifying factors. If your brand is a little bit more recognizable, your branded campaign might typically be a little bit more successful, whereas if you're more on the starting out, and you might see more success in donation campaigns. But you can really just watch those results funnel out over time, maybe about a couple weeks in, a month or so into seeing how results pan out. You can look at your cost per conversion and say, for example, in these campaigns, okay, my cost per conversion is really low for these types of keywords in this campaign. I'm going to put more budget there and see how that goes for me and see how that elevates conversions. That can be a great and pretty simple optimization. Another way we use budget is really to prioritize. Maybe in paid search, you are really trying to get visibility for specific initiatives that you have. Just like in the ad grant, you might shift budget based on your priorities and also based on the capacity that you have as an organization to serve certain requests. Okay. So like Katie talked about, there is a number of different bidding strategies. In search, if you really want to keep your CPC low, there's a number of tools you can use, such as eCPC. What we're really going to suggest for paid search is defining the daily budget that you want and then using the more advanced smart bidding strategies like target cost per acquisition to really drive your results and let Google kind of take the reins on what your CPC is within limits that you decide on. So for example, like we talked about earlier, again, going back to that point, if you can really define how much you're willing to pay for conversion, you can actually type that in when you go to your settings under bidding strategy. This is kind of umbrellaed under maximize conversions, but under max conversions, you can set a target cost per acquisition. When you set this number, that gives Google a max you are really willing to pay for a conversion. You can kind of toggle this number a little bit to get to that sweet spot of what you're willing to pay and what's going to get you a decent amount of conversions. If you notice, for example, that you're not getting the traffic that you want in, you might want to raise your TCPA. You might want to lower it a bit if you're noticing that you're getting a really nice number of conversions for a cost per conversion that is below the TCPA you have defined. We suggest starting out with a realistic number that's a little bit above the cost per acquisition that you're hoping for that specific goal, and then see where things go from there. Cool. Okay, keywords. So this really depends on your budget. If you have a higher budget for a specific campaign, for example, starting out with broad match might not be a bad idea, but we're not necessarily going to suggest it for orgs that have a more limited budget. If you do use broad match, I would say the max amount of time you want to test that out might be a week or two. If you're noticing that the search queries that you're getting back are not really matching your goals, you might want to try phrase match pretty quickly in order not to waste any budget on terms that are really not serving your direct mission, your conversions that you want to be driving home. And then from there, let's say phrase match, you're still really not getting quite to the point that you want to be in terms of search query relevancy. Exact match might be the way to go. It's really going to depend on how well it works in terms of driving conversions and what your budget allows for. So if you're noticing that broad match in a paid account is really driving conversions for you, you might want to stay there even though you notice that some of the terms coming in are not as relevant as you might want them to be. It really depends on what your goals are as an organization and what you notice is really working for you. Amazing.
Oh my gosh, the review session so quickly. My time is coming to an end, but it's okay. Just wanted to wrap it all up with this summary. Our selling points for the ad grant: it's free, it's $10,000. Like, why not apply? Paid search, you're going to get higher placement in the search engine results page, particularly for competitive keywords. So it does kind of supplement the ad grant in ways that if the ad grant can't perform in certain areas, the paid search account can. Primary focus for your ad grant, it's going to be those higher funnel goals. We do see some things trickle in from the mid and lower funnel goals, but we're going to work on awareness. In paid search, we're going to drive home like as many conversions, lower funnel things as possible in paid search. Conversions that you're going to focus on in the ad grant, pages per session, time per session, button clicks, scroll depth on your blog page, those kinds of things. Paid search, your donations. We know that's what everyone wants, but it can also be things like form submissions, newsletter signups, other non-monetary goals that are still important to you. Potential challenges for the ad grant, compliance. We're seeing less and less compliance concerns come up, but it's still something you need to keep top of mind. And then paid search, we know everyone's going to be limited by budget. Your main key performance indicators, your KPIs that you're going to look at in the grant are spend, cost per click, and click-through rate. Don't forget your CTR. Check it at least once a month. Paid search, we're going to look at cost per click, conversion rate, cost per conversion, keeping that conversion rate high and everything else low so that you're bringing in as many conversions as possible with the budget that you have.
Awesome. Okay, so for ad grant, like Katie mentioned, you're really going to be allocating budget pretty high, much higher than you might in paid search, really to drive the volume of keywords that you're able to bring in. You might change budgets a little bit to basically signal to Google different priorities that you have. Whereas in paid search, you're going to set your budget pretty close to the amount of actual budget you have for that initiative. And then you're going to kind of go up and down there based on your campaigns and what is working best. For bid strategies, the best approach for ad grant is starting out pretty low just to see kind of what works. And then once you start to see what keywords are bringing in traffic or not, if you're struggling to spend, you might try to get into those smarter bidding strategies like max conversions, TCPA. And then in paid, you're really going to be focusing on conversion-oriented strategies like max conversions and target CPA. These are going to be really key to both helping you drive conversions in your account and also communicating to Google, so to speak, how much conversions are worth for you. For keywords, like we mentioned, ad grant, a big focus is going to be on broad match unless you really have specific branding requirements or lines that you're trying to stay within. For paid search, depending on your budget, you might want to focus more on phrase and exact match to really limit into those terms that you're hoping to drive and make sure your search queries are as relevant as possible. And then calls to action, which is not really necessarily something we went over. This is relevant for ad copy. These are really going to be messages to users that are going to drive their action on your site. With ad grant, it's really more oriented to the learning side. So learn more about our org, sign up here, get more information. Whereas paid search, you're usually hoping for a specific action from the user, so you're going to want to be more direct. Apply today, donate now, and that sort of thing. Okay. All right, so that is all we got. We are really excited to talk to you all today. Definitely want to take this opportunity to urge you to schedule your paid and grant ads game plan with the team, strategize how to optimize your Google ads so your Google ads so your nonprofit can scale growth in 2023. Book your free strategy call today while we're online still. Thanks you all for being here.
And questions? We're ready for questions.
All righty, Lexi and Katie, that was a jam-packed session with amazing knowledge. I see that there's a lot of questions. You guys did answer some of the questions already, so I think there are some questions that are unanswered that I would definitely like to get here. Trisha specifically said, is GA4 a requirement for the Google Ad Grant since conversion tracking is important to compliance?
Katie, do you want to take this?
Short answer is yes. You will need to have conversion tracking set up. GA4 is now what Google is using for their analytics platform. So yes, you will need to have that set up.
Perfect. Now, there is one more. Dan asked, there's budgeting dollars for ad campaigns, but what about budgeting time for staff to work on all the keyword research and campaign structure? Like, how much time does this take up on average?
I can address this one. So it's kind of up to you in terms of what you want to pay your staff, but in terms of the time it takes, I would say for a campaign setup with maybe 3 to 4 different campaigns, it can take us anywhere from 5 to 8 hours, if not more than that occasionally. It kind of depends on your comfort with the platform. Keyword research tends to take maybe 2 to 3 hours. That's the time where you're really organizing your thoughts, what landing pages you want to drive to, and kind of make sure the different staff members that are going to be working with the account are kind of in accordance about how the account's going to be run and the different priorities. And then actually executing in platform can take a little bit of time because you're making and writing every single ad, and just making sure all the tech pieces are in place. So yeah, I would say budget maybe for, I would say 8 hours. I don't know, Katie, if you have a different thought on that.
Yeah, I would say at least 8 hours, especially since like we're in platform all day, every day. So like our bills are really fast. But once you have it set up, you can spend like what 2 hours a month optimizing. So it's a lot of upfront time put in, but once you have it running, the optimizations, I would say spend at least an hour a month in them, but if you don't have more time to allocate towards that, that's okay. It's really just that lead up time. And I am going to pitch the accelerator. If you're wanting to be able to do it yourself, you don't want to hire out, the accelerator kind of like walks you through exactly how to do everything, and there's that learning time that goes into it, but then you have access to like me and Lexi in office hours to have us help you answer questions and do things in optimization sessions and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. I think we are going to try and squeeze one more question in here. Forrest asked, does it make any sense to have different campaigns for different geographic areas, even if they are for the same goal? We are targeting a few places as hotspots for potential volunteers and donors.
Yeah, I have some campaigns. So I have questions, but it's okay. What I will tend to do is if there's like a variety of different places that you want to target and you want to have control of the budget, putting in different campaigns makes a lot of sense. If you don't really care how much each location spends, you can throw them all in the same campaign. With the ad grant, you can't just like wildly be targeting like all kinds of different countries per campaign. So if you are an international org, what we tend to do is have like a US based campaign and then like a Europe campaign or an Asia campaign, etc. Because you can't just have the entire world geo-targeted in your campaigns.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much.